Hey, we're broadcasting now.
Hi.
Hi,
Clearing your throat, we're
Internet.
live.
Been a bad night.
I thought it was a great night.
It's a good thing we have a bunch of technical people on the line
I'll just you guys. I'm just sitting here
to,
drinking beer.
to solve all problems. Now I'm going to have a coughing fit.
You got all excited.
Ah!
Oh, neat. All right.
I think so.
You're gonna live
Maybe.
for today, anyways, right?
All right. So I think we should have an episode before the night gets, sideways again.
Uh-oh.
Don't say,
The
oh.
screen just went black. What happened? Did you just lose your power?
No, I had a cat walking on a power adapter.
Cats are
My
evil.
lid is closed.
Now Dustin's cat is going to turn off his computer on us. That's the way this night's going. All right, let's go. Come on.
Hammer time.
Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin podcast, your source for IT news, commentary, and a healthy dose of paranoia. And we have the sound of Dustin cracking a beer open over the intro music. It's a great night, guys.
I muted
It is
myself.
It is a
I
great
thought I
night
did
to be
too.
on Iron Sysadmin podcast. We just started the episode and I'm already cracking open my second bottle of beer. It's gonna be a bad night.
Oh God.
Me too. Let's hear it for number 2.
Same here. Me too.
Put that in
So-
the glass so you don't look like a novice.
Episode 26. Also known as the episode where Catello has stolen all of my bandwidth. It took us 30 minutes to troubleshoot.
Tonight's episode with co-star Catello.
Yeah,
hogging all the bandwidth.
Catello wanted a spot on the show. So here we go. We're talking all about Catello.
Psych.
God damn it.
He's got enough bandwidth. He can run his own show.
Yeah, right.
All right. Now that I've completely forgotten what we do on this particular thing, what's
We
this,
do this-
what's this podcast about?
We do this IT stuff and we talk about it. So first, I'm going to apologize because I'm getting over a cold. So if I go into a coughing fit, unfortunately, because of the equipment I have here, I can't mute myself. You guys are all just going to have to deal with it. I'll edit it out in post. So, hi, I'm Nate, your host. And joining me as usual is from what did we call it last time? The missile silo. Should we keep calling it the missile silo?
I'm not the one who looks like he's in a red light tonight.
The pink missile silo.
It's not pink.
So you think?
It still looks pink on the video, man.
Uh,
You've managed to cover it up with a bunch of bookshelves, but it still looks pink.
it doesn't even look pink on my video. I don't know what your problem is.
It doesn't look pink in person. I will say that.
Hi,
It looks...
Hi, I'm Xenophage.
And we brought him
I'm
back again.
66. Back from the dead.
Dustin is sitting there in the dark. Oh,
Hello.
you turned the
As
lights on.
he should be.
Congratulations.
Oh, did I or did I do this? Or, oh,
What?
never mind.
What? Okay. He's going to play with his video now. Thus making
Wow,
everything
all these cool video effects you're using are making for great podcasting.
Yes, they are. Absolutely. I'm not even going to ask what you're doing. I'm just going to get right on into the news. So Samsung is unveiling or is talking about this really cool new technology. And this is from Engadget. So apparently Samsung has had this brilliant idea that nobody's ever thought of. They're going to put on their phones like a little Linux install. And then when you plug your phone into a dock, you can use it like a workstation.
Isn't that like Ubuntu?
Isn't that
Didn't they
like
try something like that a while ago?
isn't that what Ubuntu 1 was supposed to do? Was it Ubuntu 1?
Yeah.
Wasn't that
One
what
of
the
them.
Moto X was supposed to do? Wasn't that what was it Cyanogen mod? I think Cyanogen had something like this built into it. All of
Guys,
them
that-
failed.
I don't get it.
You don't get
I
it.
don't understand.
None of them were Samsung, I guess. So, it's new now.
Yeah, Samsung has come out with this cutting edge technology called Linux.
Linux that you
Linux.
apparently have to install as an app, even though your phone is already running Linux.
Yes, it's a container.
That's it. It's a container inside of your. I don't know. I can rip this thing to shreds all day long, but to be honest, if Samsung can pull this off and actually make this a technology that's usable, like, I don't know, it might be cool.
Are they
But,
going to go the monetary way and try to make money from it?
Of course they
you
are. They're
subscription that
Samsung.
we support.
They're Samsung. They're going to make money off it any way they can.
Yeah, true.
Buy this app now, $29.95 in the App Store.
Yeah, right.
Sign in with all your social profiles and it'll give us access to your contacts. We won't
Look,
promise.
and Gadget says that this is a clever way to turn your phone into a desktop computer.
Yeah, because again, no one's thought of this before. This is one of the reasons that I bought the Moto X. Or no, was it the X? It was the Droid 4.
Droid.
Yeah, the Droid 4. Supposedly the Droid 4 had this like built-in Android that would scale up to a full workstation if you plugged it into a dock. But the dock was like $170, which is like half the price
remember
of the
that.
phone. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I never bought one.
Linux on Galaxy launches through an app and it's using the same kernel as Android itself in order to maintain performance.
Yep.
Boy, this sounds awfully familiar.
I know, doesn't it?
It's very close to what a Docker container is.
Yeah.
It would actually surprise me if it was a Docker container.
Yay. Now our Samsung devices can run Docker. But you won't know it, and you won't be able to actually make it do anything. And then it's going to overheat, and your phone's going to shut off.
Or blow up.
Or blow up.
This is the same thing that's been done before that Cisco tried to sell as a desktop phone. What was that? What was that stupid thing called? It started with a C, didn't it?
Cirrus, right?
I don't know. Let's see.
Wasn't it Cirrus? That ugly ass tablet thing. It was part of their unified communications.
We looked at one from Avaya that was supposed to be the same deal. Yeah. They were like these ridiculously enormous tablets. They're like, oh, they're totally portable. You can take them with you wherever you go. You'll have your phone.
No. It's the Cisco CS was a step beyond that. So it wasn't just a tablet. When you got to your desk, you plugged it in front of you, and it became your desktop computer.
Oh, well, I thought that's what they were pushing too. Avaya.
No, they just had a really gaudy tablet that automatically turned on the video for you when you weren't looking.
God, those things were terrible. And they were so like enormous. It's like, you want me to replace my desk phone with this?
You remember
it was like, yeah, it was bigger than an iPad mini.
It's like, give me a 20-inch CRT and put that on my desk. That's about the size, the footprint this thing took up. I remember them being
you could carry it with you and use it like
the dock thing that it came with. I remember it all being very big and bulky.
You could use it as the slowest tablet I've ever seen.
Yeah, they were pretty horrible. And then they didn't
work. All about size, guys.
It's all about size.
I mean, you know, screen area, useful area.
It's all about screen area. Screen size.
Yeah, resolution. Sorry.
Resolution. All right. So yeah, let's all hope that Samsung can do the thing that several others have failed at before them.
Good luck.
Personally, I think Microsoft should update their phones so that they run Windows. And then you can just plug it in, you have your Windows desktop.
Imagine
as often as Windows does.
Imagine that. Wasn't that the whole point of Windows Mobile or Windows 10 or whatever? Like that it was supposed to just shrink itself down to a mobile screen?
It was
I don't know.
An aligned experience. I don't know if it was the same underlying OS. I think they were trying to get there, but I don't think they ever did.
I mean, if anybody could pull this off, it would be Windows with their unified experience, don't you think? Because the Windows phones were meant to be the same UI, right? So if you could plug that thing in and get a desktop that's the same as your Windows 10 desktop.
Yeah, they were trying to catch up with what Apple had with the big changes they made.
Yeah, but then
Dustin, I think I drank too much. I can't tell if he's kidding or not.
What, me?
Yes, you.
Whatever. I'm gonna drink some more.
You're here.
It's that kind of evening.
If Microsoft could pull that off, it actually would be it would be amazing if you think about it. So you figure Windows itself, every time Windows comes out with a new update, you end up having to buy a new computer, right? You do. It's just,
come on.
Look, you can't take a computer from 5 years ago and put Windows 10 on it and expect it to work right.
I challenge you.
Okay, so a standard computer from 5 years ago.
Yes, I challenge you.
Not some souped up gaming PC. Okay, just a regular off the shelf Dell.
Well, but I mean, if you're talking about mobile devices, like people expect you to replace them every 2 to 3 years anyway. So
right, that's what I mean. If you're going to replace your phone every 2 years, and it gets more powerful every 2 years, it can keep up with the Windows updates. God, I'm onto something here.
Wow,
you might be. Microsoft was just way ahead of their time.
And they really lost out on the mobile market too with the processors.
I'm patenting that, Microsoft. You can't have it.
It's mine.
All right. So speaking of Microsoft.
So several weeks ago, maybe several months ago at this point, we talked about an article where Microsoft was starting to prepackage an anti-ransomware feature that supposedly protected your My Documents and whatnot against ransomware. That's apparently live now.
Yes.
I guess in the fall creators update.
It's called Controlled Folder Access.
Yeah, and I really want to say we went down this same path last time, but this article,
as I like to call it, access lists.
Yeah, this article really sort of regurgitates the same thing that I remember reading a while back, which is like, hey, we're going to use these things called like permissions so that people can encrypt your files.
It's totally new. It's
totally new.
It is, because they're going to block everything by default.
It must. I mean, it has to be more complicated than this, and we just don't get it.
Because I have a question. This is important.
Okay.
If you block everything by default, okay,
you're going down the folder. It's the same place my brain went.
Everything is blocked by default. How do you add permissions for yourself?
It's the same place my brain went.
You don't. The user does not have control.
What you have to do is you have to develop malware that gets around the access controls in Windows.
Oh, it's a good thing they developed Windows then.
Because nobody does that.
Oh, this is awesome. So the malware gets onto your computer and it can only encrypt the folders that you own.
Now, the article, which is on Bleeping Computer, by the way, does illustrate a lot of like how this is configured and whatnot, and it's definitely different than just user permissions, at least from a UI perspective. So I have no idea what they're doing differently in the background here.
Yeah, it looks like little.
I'm really confused. Like, so it's whitelisting apps that are allowed to access, edit, create, and remove files from protected folders. So it sounds, I mean, for all the fun that we're making of it, it actually sounds like it's not so much permissions for a user, it's permissions for an app.
Right.
So only certain applications are allowed to get into different folders.
Wait, what does this sound like? It sounds just like SE Linux.
Oh, wait. Oh, my computer wants to restart again.
Hey, you should go ahead and install that. You should go ahead and install that Mac OS update. I will wait.
And I love that this whole thing ends with like PowerShell and group policy management console stuff, because
Well, you know,
if there's anything that your standard Windows user likes, it's group policy management.
Oh yes.
well, this is so that, you know, desktop managers can automate this kind of stuff.
Because every user knows what MMC is.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Yeah. So this is all about applications.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there.
Oh.
I am
Here it comes.
pretty sure that I figured out how to get around this. And if anybody wants to go try this, feel free. Write a shell script.
Okay. And do what?
Just write a shell script to do your encryption or modifications or whatever that you want to do.
Well, you mean
a PowerShell? Sure. So
PowerShell. Okay.
Yep. Sure. So malware X comes in and runs a shell script as you.
Yeah. So
now it's you doing it.
PowerShell would have to invoke a third-party program to actually do the encryption, though.
I don't know. PowerShell is pretty powerful. You might be able to do the encryption right in PowerShell.
What makes you think PowerShell is powerful? Because it's in the name?
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, why would they name it PowerShell if it wasn't?
Well, you know,
it's
because
so
Bash was
powerful.
already taken.
Wow.
And we know Bash stands for badass shell. So
I'm a little punchy tonight, guys. Sorry.
No, that's great.
I think you can get around it with PowerShell. Let's see what happens.
Well, I mean, I would hope they would think of that. I mean,
Wow.
PowerShell is their application, and this is their application. If you could just like fire up PowerShell and encrypt all the files,
but like
pretty,
when you're modifying,
big of an oversight.
When you're editing and modifying files and stuff, you have to be using Windows applications to do it, which means that all of the Windows applications you use every day for those to access those files have to be whitelisted. So if you can hook into them, you're golden. So look at it this way. I go in and I hook in, my malware hooks into Windows Explorer, and it uses Windows Explorer to load the file into the malware, right? To copy it to the malware. The malware, you know, encrypts that file and passes it back to Windows Explorer, which then copies the file into that directory. Windows Explorer is doing all the modifying.
Do you think Windows Explorer has unrestricted permissions?
I think
it would have to.
I think if you call it the right way, I'm sure you could script that right in.
So, I mean, basically, like, if you're going to browse to this directory and look at your files, Windows Explorer is going to have to be granted read access.
Yeah.
And write access.
Minimum of read access.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably write access if you intend to actually move or manage any of your files.
And look, let's get real. Microsoft is going to make this easy for end users, which means that you're probably not going to be asked about things like, well, do you want to give it read and write access or just read access? Or, you know, so they're just going to go, you know, whitelist.
Even if it does ask you, the end user is going to be like, oh, well, yeah, just do this. Make it work.
Exactly.
The thing doesn't work. The button will make it work. Make it work. Go.
Click.
Right. And look, I mean, you know, we're picking on Windows. There's other operating systems out there that have similar problems. So.
Set and force 0.
Except Macs. Macs don't get viruses, so we're pretty good.
Macs don't. Yeah. Well, I mean, neither do Linux boxes. We're good. I mean, if Macs don't get viruses, Linux boxes don't even get talked about.
Speaking of viruses. Speaking of viruses.
This one comes from Reuters.
Did you hear about that company in Russia?
Which one?
Yeah, there's totally this company in Russia that's been like infecting us with antivirus software.
Really good antivirus software.
Now, obviously, that antivirus software, because it came from Russia, is evil stuff. We talked about this last time around, as anybody will remember, because you all have to be repeat listeners. If you're not repeat listeners, then I don't know what's wrong with you.
Well, you're putting a lot of pressure here on our viewers and listeners.
But anyway.
No. See, all new listeners start from episode 1 and work their way up to the current episode.
Yeah, don't they call that binge listening? Although we've only got 26 episodes at this point. That's not that long of a binge. Of course, there's some nights we went on pretty long. You could be talking about several days of podcasts at that point.
Well, I mean, if you don't sleep, you could probably do it in 2 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's get real. Sysadmins don't sleep, so
I think we have a two and a half hour episode back there somewhere.
Oh, I believe it.
Were we drunk?
Probably.
Sorry. Okay, so
Pan, I can only take so much out in post before the episode loses cohesion.
Well, I don't know, 2.5 hours. It might have lost cohesion long before post.
It did. I'm sure it did.
Okay, so Kaspersky. So these poor bastards. These poor bastards are stuck in the Russia hacked the U.S. and the DNC and stole our elections and blah 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 blah. And because they're Russian, we should get rid of all of them. End of story. So, if I remember correctly, this was let's see, there was an NSA person who took home some stuff from the NSA and subsequently allegedly put that on his personal computer. Kaspersky looked at that and said, huh, that looks like a virus, and then uploaded it to Kaspersky's servers for further dissection. Now, Kaspersky put out a blog post not too long ago that basically said, yeah, so that's a feature of our antivirus and just about every other antivirus out there. And there's big warnings that say what's going to happen if you turn that on. Also, did anybody happen to notice the part where the NSA guy brought home NSA stuff? And
no, I missed that.
Yeah,
I totally missed
that. So they alleged in their blog post that perhaps this particular NSA person brought home, I don't know, some sort of weird new cyber threat that they were working on that looked an awful lot like a cyber threat, so that heuristics detection systems would pick it up. You know, kind of like what the NSA would work on. And Kaspersky's antivirus noticed it,
sent it to Russia,
and they sent it to their servers, some of which are in Russia,
right?
And then turned it into, which was really, I thought was really good. They basically said, yeah, so we detected the NSA's malware. Doesn't that make us really good?
That might be good. So, I mean, the point of the article that we've linked is that apparently Kaspersky is basically opening up their software for review, so they can just kind of say, like, look, you can see our code and see what it's doing, so you can stop being so paranoid. So that's cool.
Yeah, which is, I mean, well, they're giving it to outside reviewers.
I'm going to assume that they're not going to just open source their their antivirus.
Right.
But yes, they're going to open it up for review.
A little insane.
Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, I think that that's probably the best response they can have to this.
Agreed.
Don't you think? Like, what else could they do to boost trust other than say, like, look, here's everything. We're going to open the vault and let you look inside. And in there, you won't find, you know, some little red devil.
I think now that you say opening a vault, it kind of reminds me of like a Willy Wonka-esque dealio. Yeah. Maybe they should offer like, you know, golden ticket.
Yeah, there needs to be golden tickets. And then like some girl turns into a snozberry.
Yeah, it's like if you read through this article, it's really funny because they're like, oh, the former NSA director basically says that's a great step, but it's not enough. And then this let's see, senior vice president at online identity management firm Newstar, an advisor to the FCC, said that Kaspersky must show it fixed all existing vulnerabilities, not just guarding against new ones, which is, I think, I'm not entirely certain how that fits in with anything that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if the issue is trust here.
I mean, sure. I mean, it'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. They should fix the source and fix any bugs that are known. But
yeah, but I mean, software bugs don't. I mean, yes, there's a level of trust there, but not in the same light that we're referring to here.
Yeah.
This is like, are you taking our files and letting bad people in Russia look at them? Like, that level of trust isn't a software bug. That's an intentional thing, right?
Let's see.
If
The
that's what
review, this congressperson said the review is a red herring that doesn't address any of the fundamental underlying concerns with Kaspersky products, including Russian law that allows the Kremlin to monitor data transmissions. Like, okay,
not the
valid.
Kremlin.
So
I
don't
mean,
send your stuff to Kaspersky. I mean, you just there's a switch in there. You switch it
if
off.
they had just named that position something a little less threatening, this wouldn't be a problem.
Hmm.
I mean, Kremlin sounds like Gremlin. Gremlins kept me up at night as a kid.
I love that movie.
Especially when you give them water after hours.
No, it was chicken. Wasn't it chicken?
I don't remember.
Don't feed them after dark, after midnight.
That's what it was. Don't feed them. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Kaspersky's totally going to let people review their code and say, look, we ain't the bad guys. So I guess we'll see where that goes.
See.
Moving on to something else where we'll just have to see where it goes. Mr. Bill Gates, philanthropist and billionaire, has decided he's going to throw money at the U.S. education system again.
Another news.
I don't know much. I don't know much
the
about
U.S. education system.
Yeah, I don't know much about his previous attempts here, and I'm sure this article goes into it because it is really long. I thought this was a very long read.
Yeah. So I mean, he's had a number of other attempts.
I think it said,
and I'm trying to remember at least one or two of them where like he started a school and like dumped millions into just that school. And if I remember the outcome, it was, wow, these kids got really smart and this was a great program. Also, nobody can afford this. so it kind of didn't go anywhere.
And it's only one school, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't help anybody.
Let's see. He also did a teacher evaluation system that used standardized test scores, which has been a kind of a thing for a while.
Standardized tests in our schools? No.
Yeah. So, but it got worse. So they used the standardized tests to evaluate the teachers, and as a result, they had a lot of teachers who ended up losing their jobs because the scores didn't come back the way they wanted to. Blah blah blah. You know, it was not a good thing. And you know, I guess the science wasn't in to vet that anyway.
Yeah. So this time around, it looks like he's just pouring a bunch of money into charter and public schools.
Mostly charter schools, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2000, he dumped $650 million into small schools in New York City, and then dropped the effort 9 years later because the hope was that after a few years they would operate at the same cost per student as before, but they would have become much more effective. Many of the small schools that we invested in did not improve students' achievement in any significant way. So that didn't help.
Guess not.
Fail.
So we're gonna try it again.
So it turns out that giving money to schools doesn't actually help students. Is that what you're saying? That's weird.
No, because I mean, let's be real. In order to help students, you have to have teachers that want to help the students. You have to have something that's engaging. And I mean, what the hell was that guy's name? There was a really good TED Talk I watched a while ago that basically explained that, you know, when we were growing up, and when our parents were growing up, it was all rote. It was, you know, you sat down, you did the math for an hour,
right,
every day, and then you did English for an hour every day, but that's the way everything in your life was. And kids today are basically like constantly everything's vying for their attention, right? Which is not, you know, and you know, there's people that say that that's bad, but I don't know that I agree with that. But you know, kids jump from thing to thing to thing quickly, so to have them daily going through, you know, in their daily lives outside of school, they jump from topic to topic to topic, and they're very, very good at it. And then they sit down in school, and the school's like, okay, we're going to talk about the same topic for an hour, the entire hour, right?
Mm.
The kids get bored. It's 10 minutes in, they're like, ugh, and they just turn themselves off.
Yeah.
Now, if you and you don't have, you can talk about the same topic for an hour. You just have to keep it moving. You have to keep jumping within that topic to keep.
You just got to do it while throwing koosh balls at them.
No, you change the medium. You constantly change the medium, and any given medium that you're using to teach shouldn't last more than 10 to 15 minutes. Keep switching things up, and it keeps the students engaged. And like my understanding from what I've seen is that they've basically done this, and the kids have learned faster. You know, the other thing that I personally would like is if school was year round, because I watch my kids every single year spend the first 2 to 3 months of school relearning everything they learned the previous year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's
Well,
other ways to combat that, but it means that the parents need to pick up where the teacher stops at the end of the school year, which is hard.
Yeah, but that's not going to help. That's not going to help unless all of the parents do that.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I personally can do to help them. At the beginning of every year, they're going to be stuck in classes, you know, going, oh God, here we go again. Doesn't matter, you know. It almost makes it worse if I've taught them all summer and kept them engaged all summer, because then they're like, oh, we're doing it again. The year-round thing is still like they've done this a couple different ways, and one of the ways is that they said, you know, let's keep 180 days, but instead of taking a day off for Easter, give them a week. Instead of taking, you know, a day off here, a day off there, you give
I've
a
heard
week or two break
before.
And you break that 180 days up. And you know, a lot of I guess the argument is that, you know, oh, well, you know, well, if the kids aren't in school, then how am I supposed to work? And my argument back is, what do you do during the summer? Do you not work? Because your students are home all summer. Like,
yeah,
there's
but I mean that in itself is a problem.
What's that?
The 2 months off or 3 months off that kids get over the summer becomes a problem for working parents. Period.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
I mean,
And it becomes a problem for
kids that are in school knows this.
And it becomes a problem for kids because, again, they you know, most of them don't stay engaged, you know, in school. Yeah. And again, they come back and they're like, oh, I forgot what I did last year. And then, like,
it also doesn't set up a realistic expectation as to what work is going to be like, because you don't you don't get 2 months off of work every summer. I mean, I guess you could if you lucked out and you have an employer that gives you a ton of vacation time, but
or you become a teacher.
Or you become a teacher. You could become a teacher. No, the teachers. Listen, I have a couple of friends that are teachers.
It's a joke. I know.
They really don't get the summer off. Their workload decreases over the summer. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. It was a joke. I understand that.
Yeah. I guess I should have known better than to bring up an article about education with Jason on the podcast.
What? We've had conversations about education before?
Never.
Yeah,
right.
so he's just gonna dump money into a lot of schools this time and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, schools can use money, don't get me wrong, but
sure,
a one-time influx of a ton of money seems like it's short-lived.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that we spend on school every year has been increasing.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You know, it's like what was it? The one year the kids came home and they're begging us for a couple bucks so they can go out because they want to be one of the kids that supplies tissues to the school. For their classroom, they wanted tissues, so they wanted to bring in tissues. And I'm like,
they didn't have tissues, really?
Shouldn't the school buy that? They're like, no, no, the teacher has to buy them. I'm like, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound right at all.
My daughter came home from school because she was all like excited that she wanted to buy whiteboard erase markers for the teacher.
What?
I'm like,
what the hell?
Really? I'm like, why are you buy a gift for your teacher? That's cool, right? Like, you want to be nice to your teacher? That's awesome, because your teacher, in my opinion, your teacher deserves, as long as your teacher's doing a good job.
Yeah,
there are bad teachers out there, but most of them, some teachers get a bad rap, but whatever. That's beside the point. If your teacher's doing a good enough job that the kid feels like they want to give teacher a gift, that is awesome, I think. But
Agreed.
whiteboard erase markers, dry erase markers, it's like, shouldn't the school be giving you those things?
Yeah, I mean, your daughter's young enough that it's not like she came up with that on her own.
No.
I mean,
No,
that's like,
and that's exactly what it is.
yeah, the teacher mentioned
That's
like,
messed
oh,
up.
I wish I had whiteboard erase markers.
Yeah,
That's like saying, oh, I need to buy plastic utensils for the cafeteria because
yeah,
we can't eat anything.
I mean,
Okay, I spend enough money. I spend, what are the kids? It's like it's costing us like $50 a week right now for
Holy
the kids
crap.
for school lunch. Yeah,
yeah,
Damn.
yeah, it's not cheap.
They better have utensils.
I mean, excuse me. There it goes again. I can't fault the teacher because like the teacher just has to deal with the budget she's been given, right? Or
Sure.
he, right? So if she has to ask for dry erase markers, it's like I don't like that my kid wants to buy her teacher dry erase markers because the teacher doesn't have dry erase markers, because I feel like taxes should be buying her dry erase markers.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I can't fault the teacher for that. The teacher's just trying to do a job.
Sure,
right?
sure. I wonder where, like, my taxes around here are pretty expensive. I'm kind of curious where all that money goes.
Yeah.
Actually, I know where that money goes. They have a really, really nice football field.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Like an unbelievably nice football field, like college level nice football field.
We could.
My high school did the same thing.
We could really rabbit trail all over the place with this. But yes, I agree. That new stadium they built in the town that Jason and I live in, while I do think it is very nice and I think the kids benefit from it, I think that money could have gone to dry erase markers.
And tissues.
And notebooks and
I mean,
stuff
I don't
really freaking matters.
Yeah, I don't really have any. I mean, this is the first year we're in this school district, so I can't really say about this school district. But the previous one, for all of the, we don't have tissues and we don't have this, and please do that, and
but we have this awesome football stadium.
Well, we did get a fundraiser. They came home the first day with a fundraiser, so yeah, so it started already. And I think we've had 2 or 3 more already since then.
Yeah.
The previous school district we were in is now in the midst, after begging for tissues, is in the midst of building a $30 million new school.
Yep. That, if I remember correctly, none of the taxpayers actually
all the taxpayers voted it down.
Yeah. Now,
and then the board turned around and said, "Yeah, we're going to do it anyway."
I'm going to say that taxpayers are notoriously stingy. Right? So, excuse me. When the question comes up of, hey, do you want your tax money to go to a big new $30 million school that, by the way, is going to raise your taxes? Of course, taxpayers are going to say no. The real question is, did the school district actually need a $30 million school?
Of course they did. See, they're going to take what are there, 4? Are there 4 surrounding schools? The elementary schools. I think there's 4 of them. They're going to take all 4 of those. They're going to put them all in the same building. And by doing that, they're going to lower the overall cost of having to heat 4 schools. They're only going to have to heat 1 building.
It's not just heat, though. Those buildings were ancient. Not ancient, but they're old enough that they needed updating to begin with.
I mean, I haven't. It's been a little while since I've been in them, but they look better than some of the other schools.
Some of those schools were old when my wife went to them. I'll put it that way.
They probably were, but they were. But okay, fine. But still, we're going to take all 4 of those schools instead of updating.
Yeah,
them.
I mean, I'm not trying I'm not trying to defend their decision, but I'm simply trying to say, like, every time you hear about these things, you have to think about both sides. Right.
Sure.
Like
I don't.
I mean, like in the case where my kid's teacher is asking for dry erase markers, right? It's like part of me wants to say, "What the hell? My taxes are supposed to pay for that." But the other side of me is like, "Well, obviously she doesn't have enough money to get dry erase markers. Otherwise, she wouldn't be asking." Because I've met this woman. She's not like some like crazy greedy woman that wants to hoard all of her dry erase markers.
No. But right, the school's not providing them. But
Right.
at the same time, like some of the reasons they come up with are ridiculous. Thinking that you're going to take 4 buildings, combine it into one, pay less for heat in that one building is sort of dumb, especially now since you have to bus all the kids in from all those locations even further now.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Education Podcast, where we talk about education issues.
Iron education.
I think that it is time to stop beating poor Bill Gates's education philanthropy to death and move along. What do you think?
Oh, sounds good. What are we talking about now?
Somewhere here, I've got the right button. Education. Speaking of education, there's kind of an educational thing going on November 1st. I think it's November 1st, right? Is that next Wednesday?
Yes.
Yes, indeed it is. Two Rivers Brewing in Easton, PA, the LV Hackers. Oh, and somebody is typing in the show notes that B-Sides Delaware is November 10th and 11th. I wonder who that could be. If you'd stop moving, I could hover over your cursor and find out. It's Xenophage at DTCC in Delaware.
Delaware.
Delaware. So what is DTCC?
Delaware Technical Community College.
Interesting.
In Wilmington. So it's the same town that they've had B-Sides Delaware in previous years, different school.
Similar commute, I assume?
So it seems.
So it seems. You haven't seen this place yet, I assume?
I will see it on November 9th.
Oh.
When I drive up with my my kid.
Good then.
And we set things up.
So this week I made sure to get myself tickets for me and my oldest daughter. We're going to go down. We're probably going to hang out in Spawn Camp, maybe do some more lockpicking. I've been trying to get her in. Yeah, but she's basically going to smash computers is what it's going to come down to.
Oh, yeah, Destruction Alley. So yeah, we've got Spawn Camp for the kids. We've got Destruction Alley for the kids, where we have a whole bunch of old machines that they get to take apart and figure out what's inside them.
And by take apart, you mean smash with hammers and screwdrivers?
No. The smashing is not allowed. I mean, it's you get tools and you have to take it apart. I mean, they occasionally break a piece off or here or there, but it's intentionally not smash the machine.
In my experience, at least at 2015's B-Sides Delaware, the screwdrivers were not used for screws at all.
we got a little better at that. So
okay.
So what else do we have? We have a lockpick village. We have a forensics village, and this year we're gonna have our first ever badge challenge.
Badge challenge, huh?
Badge challenge. Yes.
Should I bring my soldering iron?
No. It's
not quite like that. Huh?
Not quite like that. Kind of a crypto style challenge. There may or may not be a magnetic strip involved, maybe some
interesting,
clues here and there. Yeah. I'm honestly, I'm not doing the challenge. Like, I'm not running it, so I don't know all the bits and pieces. But it should be interesting.
I don't know what you did in 2016, but in 2015, I remember there was the floppy disk challenge.
Yeah,
the floppy disk, and the floppy disk actually had data on it. The data was encrypted.
Some of them did, yes.
Some of them did.
Some of the disks were just bad.
Mine had data on it.
I can't figure this out. It's really difficult.
Yeah,
you have a book like this.
Yeah. Yep. So yep, that was there. But this is a that was a last minute, like, hey, we could put this on there and encrypt it.
Yeah, no,
and that was basically it.
Hearing about it. Did anybody solve it? Because I never got past it.
Yeah, I believe so. It was posted, I believe, on Twitter.
I'm gonna have to look it up, I suppose. Because I didn't try it for very long, but since then my skills in such matters have evolved a bit. So it'll be interesting to see it again.
So pre-registration is over. So if you pre-registered, you get free lunch, you get badge and swag and all sorts of stuff.
I got in just under the wire. I was
late registration is open now.
Last Wednesday or Thursday I registered.
Yeah, so late registration is open now, and I think it's closing sometime probably by the end of next week, which will get you a badge. You don't get lunch for this one, and then you can always walk in day of conference, and you'll get a sticker that says "Hi, my name is," and you can write whatever you want on there.
Yay!
So
hi, my name is.
Yep.
My name is.
So we are in our.
The guy with the platinum blonde hair did a song about that.
I want to say we're in our 7th or 8th year. I think it's the 8th year. But
yeah, cool.
Yeah, it gets bigger and better every year. Come out and have some fun.
Wait, so B-Sides Delaware has been in existence longer than DerbyCon?
I believe so. Yes.
Huh. Wow. Interesting.
I think they started the year before DerbyCon.
Cool.
I could be wrong, but I am not a B-Sides historian.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. My daughter had fun at it. She was only 5 when we were there last time. And I actually introduced her to lockpicking. She got to play in Destruction Alley a bit. There were snap circuits set up there. She was playing with snap circuits, which was something interesting. She'd never made a circuit of anything before, and I was able to show her, this is how to make a light bulb light up, and I think there was a thing there with a little propeller on it that we were making fly into the air. She was having fun with that.
Cool.
I showed her how to wire up 2 sets of batteries in series so that we could make it fly higher. So it was pretty cool. I don't know that the snap circuits were designed to let me wire up 2 batteries in series, but I figured it out.
You're not the only one.
I'm sure. I wonder if anybody lost a hair or an eye or something from that little propeller flying up in the air.
I think they did actually find the upper limit of the number of series batteries you can put. How many batteries you can put in series before the motor does not go any faster.
Nice. Met the maximum velocity of the motor. Nice.
Yeah, I think they actually burnt out one of the motors.
Nice. So aside from B-Sides Delaware coming up, I realized as I was typing up the show notes for this episode and getting the YouTube feed up and running and everything, we're at episode number 26, which if you go 26, based on the number of weeks in a year, every other week, because we record every other week, we're actually at a year today. We've been doing this thing a year.
26 times 2 is 52, and that's the number of weeks in a year.
Indeed. Sorry if it took me a bit to get there. Technically, I mean, Google
Common Core is rough.
Google says there's like 26 or sorry, Google says there's like 52.2487 whatever weeks in a year. So technically, I guess maybe we're not there yet.
Close enough.
Close enough. So anyway, episode 26 would be the end of the first year. So hey, we made it. As long as we make it to the 2 weeks from now, which would be our next recording, we will have actually passed 1 year. We'll be starting a second year. That's pretty cool.
Woo-woo.
Yay!
Awesome.
I'd like to take this opportunity to announce my retirement. Just gonna go out on top.
Jason's like, screw this podcast shit. I don't want to do this anymore. I played them on a Monday night.
No, it took you a while to talk me into it to begin with, and it's been fun. So, I mean, I can at least, I can look at my wife and say, I'm sorry, honey. I have to go downstairs, talk to my friends, and drink beer.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible, right?
It's it's horrible. Of course, during that year, we established that I now have to go to New York every Tuesday morning.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
The podcast runs long, and well, let's just say that the next morning as I'm driving through Jersey, I fit right in with the rest of the drivers.
Yeah, right. So over the past, year, I've gotten quite the collection of bottle caps laying here.
Wow. Do you know what kind of gun you can buy in Fallout with that?
With bottle caps. Practically knocking over the mixer here. That's something we didn't have on our first episode, a mixer.
Jason didn't have an official microphone on the first episode either.
No, neither did I. I was using this headset with the mic attached to it.
My microphone was fine. You people are just haters.
No one liked your microphone, man. No one liked your microphone. It was very grainy. Dustin, you have a similar problem. I'll just go ahead and say that.
I know, but I haven't been on here long enough to justify the purchase.
Are you using a wireless headset?
I am.
That's it. Wireless headsets are digitized.
I am failing you, sir.
They get real like digital, whatever.
Let's get digital.
Digital.
Right? Yeah.
So, you guys have anything cool going on? Any neat projects? Any?
Jason and I are thinking of trying to figure out how to build our own Ansel server, maybe someday.
What server?
Ansel, ANTSLE.
SLE.
Yeah.
So
I
was on Twitter, and one of their advertisements. No, one of the advertisements actually.
I was on Twitter, and like somebody typoed something, and they were wrong, and I just had to correct them, and then
after how many years on Twitter, one of those stupid Twitter ads was actually
relevant.
Yeah,
this ad relevant?
Somewhat
to you?
relevant.
Yes.
So basically, it's a fanless server.
Oh, you were talking about this the other day.
Yeah. So the slick part is they have their own software that gives you like a interesting GUI to do things with both VMs and containers, which is neat. Like, there's lots of them out there. It looked slick. It was pretty neat. And I went to the site, and if you first look at the site, it looks great, and you're like, wow, I can get one of these things for like $900.
Mm-hmm.
Until you actually go in and you look at it, and you find out that if you want one that actually has the specs that they suggest is for $900, it doesn't cost you $900. It costs you more like $2,900. So I may have contacted the CEO or CTO or whatever his title is over there and had a little argument with him about how high he jacks up the price of his parts. And
I cannot imagine you doing this.
Look,
if
I can go to Amazon and buy 2 of the same hard drive for $1,400, that he's charging $1,700 as an upgrade from the already what the hell? I don't know what his cost is, but if we go by Amazon's cost, the $400 set of drives that are there, that what am I at now? That $800 upgrade or $800 markup price is a little ridiculous. And his answer was basically like, well, we have to make money, and like we can't make the software for free. I was like, well, that's cool, but like don't try to hide the cost in other stuff.
Hardware. Yeah, it was really dumb.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if you went and actually like look up the parts, and I'm not like digging. I literally went to Amazon and typed in like, I want the same part that this thing has, and the cost was like really low from Amazon, which means that at least in my world, somebody who's building these things at in large groups should be getting a much better price on those, because remember, Amazon has marked them up as well. So
yep.
I imagine he's probably making, double the cost of the parts. And, so I was talking to Dustin about it, who apparently had already encountered this and had decided that this was a neat device and we should build one. It's just a server. It's just, I hadn't thought about it before, but it would be really nice to have a box either here at the house or hosted with you or both, that was small and quiet and powerful, that I could throw containers on and just do stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe I can actually have that Plex server that I don't have today because I don't want to fire up my friggin' laptop every time I want to watch a movie.
See,
so So, I mean, long story short, we're going to build a computer.
Yeah, I mean, low power, low noise machines would actually be very useful.
Yeah, yeah.
Indeed.
So,
I mean, if I could replace the machines I have here with nice, quiet, low power machines, I would be much happier.
yeah, I mean, we're talking like a Mac Mini style type thing.
Yeah.
Well, a little bigger than the Mac Mini, but at a little bit more powerful at the same or lower price point. I'd like to keep the thing under $1,000, and it should be easy to do. I want like 32 gigs of RAM, some hard drives, and
that'd be cool.
a CPU,
decent processor.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Cool stuff. I'm getting back from vacation and being sick, so I don't have a whole lot going on. I painted a door.
Ooh.
Because that's the thing I did on vacation.
At least you didn't do any plumbing on vacation.
Nope, no plumbing. I don't think no.
I managed to cause a water meter to pop off before the shutoff valve in a basement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. 25 minutes later, it got shut off.
Yeah, he sent me the video, unbelievably calm, explaining like, so I was working on the plumbing, and all you hear in the background is.
Yeah, it was a good time. That was the night when it was like 30 degrees outside. Yeah, it was fun.
I'm gonna miss work today, man. I got a problem.
No, he's a trooper. He made it to work the next day and everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks to a shop vac.
I can honestly say that I have never had that issue.
Yeah, basically, if you ever see a water meter that has a fitting that's questionable, don't touch it, is what I was told.
Don't touch it.
See something like that again, don't touch it. Call us. Okay.
All right, I'll do that.
Lesson learned.
Awesome.
And I wasn't even working. I was working on the house side of it, but yeah. Here nor there. It was fun.
I believe the technical term for that is oops.
Yeah, oops. Hey, but I cleaned the floor. The floor is really clean now.
I bet.
Yeah. Anyways.
I fixed the lawnmower this weekend. Again.
Blade pop off?
No, this time it bent.
Oh.
We are slowly but surely rebuilding the lawnmower one part at a time.
Well, that's how it goes.
I rebuild what's currently broken. It gets used for a couple days, and then it's, hey, I broke the lawnmower again. Oh, what's wrong this time? Oh, this thing is broke. Okay, hang on. And then I get on Amazon. I order the next part.
Man, when I moved in here, the house I'm in now, which was my grandfather's, we didn't have a decent lawnmower at our old place. So when I moved in, my grandfather's old lawnmower was still here, which was perfectly like, it's not some ancient push mower or something. It's like your normal lawnmower, right? Gas powered, whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. I got a lawnmower now. So like the first time I went to fire it up and use it, it's one of these where you can put a bag on it, or you can take the bag off and then it'll close and mulch or whatever, right? Well, he was using it with the mulching, right? Well, I found that was leaving a whole lot of grass laying around, so I wanted to use it with the bag. So there was like this metal plate that had to come off in order to put the bag on. So I took the metal plate off, I put the bag on, and then there was this like weird bracket underneath the lawnmower that just kept falling down and getting like, it had this point on it that would dig into the dirt. And I don't know what it was for or why it kept falling down, but the metal plate that he had on to keep it, to when it was mulching, right? The metal plate that would cover up the outlet for the bag, would keep the thing from falling down. So I'm like, this is why he didn't use the bag. Because it would work. But I wanted to use the bag. So I actually had to break out my freaking welder.
You cut the plate off.
I had to tack weld the plate, the one that was falling down, in place. It's still like that to this day. It still works. But,
I think I would have just ripped the plate off, but okay, same difference.
Well, no, this was like, it wasn't just this plate. It was like this piece that was part of the body of the lawnmower. They kept falling. It had this weird like point. It looked like its only purpose was to dig into the dirt and get the lawnmower stuck. I have no idea why it's even there.
Well, see, that's a planned obsolescence piece. So what happens is after the lawnmower goes so far, that falls down and digs into the ground, and everybody goes and buys a new lawnmower.
Yeah. So
Engineered to fail.
Not me. I tack weld the damn thing in place. It doesn't come down anymore.
Going to do work.
On the other hand, I can't use the plate that let it mulch anymore. But whatever. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, so the other thing I was working on was Amazon's ECS, which is our main topic tonight. So I guess I may as well play the transition, huh? So I know at least Jason has delved at least briefly into Amazon's ECS. Have you, Dustin?
I've scratched the surface. I ran a sample container, and that was about it.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I haven't gone too deeply into it either. This is my second go around. The first time around, I ran into a weird, well, not weird. I ran into a misunderstanding on my part where I didn't quite understand how to run more than one workload within the cluster. And I think I figured that out. So we'll talk about that a little bit more tonight. But so basically, Amazon ECS is the EC2 container service. So EC2 is obviously the Elastic Compute 2. What's the 2 for?
I think it means 2 C's. I think it's like Elastic Computing Cluster.
Oh, that could be. So anyway, EC2, you know, I mean, if you're unaware, EC2 lets you run a general purpose VM within Amazon's cloud. What ECS does, it'll run container platform instances, basically automated and whatnot, so that you can run containers in EC2. The issue that I had with it the first time around was, one, I was expecting more of a managed container service, and I think, Jason, that was your qualm with it as well, right?
Yeah. In other news, I'm wrong, sort of.
You're wrong. So, as to what EC2 stands for?
Yeah, so there's another one that says Elastic Compute Cloud, and
that makes sense.
That's also apparently wrong. Amazon apparently says that EC2, maybe it's not Amazon. There's another thing that says it's Elastic Compute Generation 2.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Generation 1 was, though. I guess
that was just EC, Amazon EC.
Yeah, Wikipedia says Elastic Compute Cloud, though, so I'm going to go with that, because Wikipedia is never wrong.
Wikipedia is never wrong. That's right. Good old Wikipedia. So anyway,
okay, so back to this.
Yeah. So what I was expecting out of EC2 was something more like, I mean, have either of you ever used Red Hat's OpenShift Online?
I haven't used Online, but we've played with
Origin.
Origin, yeah, OpenShift Origin.
So I mean, OpenShift Online is basically that Red Hat has put Origin, or maybe Enterprise, I suppose, in EC2, and they'll let you run containers on their platform. So it is 100% a platform as a service, PaaS. All you have to do is bring a container or a repo that will build a container, and you can point it at, point their OpenShift at your container, and it'll pull it in and run it. That's what I was expecting out of the ECS, and that's really not quite what it is. Instead of giving you a fully baked container platform, they give you an easy way of building your own container platform on EC2, which most of it is automated, which is nice, and you get to choose what sort of instance size and instance types are used to create your platform. which is cool. That's kind of a way you control cost. But basically what it comes down to is you define a cluster, the cluster builds instances on EC2, and those instances run all the time, right? So the cost for running an ECS cluster is essentially the cost that it would be to run whatever instance types you picked. You can actually run this cluster on, T2 Tinies or something that are relatively cheap to run. The one I was tinkering with, I put it on a T2 or 4 medium, which works out to like $35 a month per instance. But obviously it's already turned off now, so it's probably ran me a couple cents. But anyway, that's pretty much how the pricing model works. It's not like I pictured that ECS was a separate service from EC2, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. From a billing perspective, it's just EC2 instances that run containers. The overhead of managing the instances and the containers, there's no additional cost for that, as far as I can tell. So it's basically whatever storage and instances you run, it's the same as you'd expect from standing up an EC2 instance and connecting it to an S3 bucket, right? So, that's sort of how ECS works as far as, cost-wise and how it's working under the covers. As far as how it's managing containers and whatnot, that I don't know. As far as I know, it's basically some special sauce that Amazon has thrown at it. It's not Kubernetes or something like that. I mean, have either of you run into any of that in any of your research and how this thing works?
They're using vanilla Docker under the hood. And to be honest, I'm not even sure that they're using Swarm.
I was going to say, is it Swarm then or something? Because
I mean, I know you can do multiple instances of running Docker, but and maybe it's Swarm. But when we were messing around with it, it was sort of like right when Swarm first came out, I believe. So it's really hard for me to believe that they had Swarm on there by then.
Yeah.
So unless they have some sort of special sauce, orchestrator running on there, I don't know. And it's you really can't tell. Because I mean,
yeah, they mask all that away from you.
Yeah, the container service runs just like RDS does and some of their other services, where you just tell it like, I want to use this size instances, and it sets up the software for you. So if you're, if RDS is the databases, and I've seen this with RDS. They've done this with DynamoDB, although that's a little bit different. But DynamoDB is very similar from a you basically tell it what size instances, and it does something to make them into a big fat database. So this is kind of how they manage all of those. It doesn't feel like it makes sense with containers though. Is my biggest problem, like, because it's like, all right, I want to set up containers. Okay, how many virtual machines would you like?
Yeah,
right.
It's not very scalable.
Well, I mean, it is scalable, but from a cost perspective, it's odd, right? So what I expected was, I want to run a container. Give me a rate for a container of this size.
I see.
And instead, what they give you is, well, we're not going to charge you for the container. We're going to charge you for how many EC2 instances you need to run it.
Right. So if you contrast that with Google Compute, they're basically charging you by the container, because any given moment, you actually can't tell how many machines you're running on. They have this massive Kubernetes cluster or whatever they're using. I'm sure it's specialized, but they have this massive cluster that just runs containers, and your container runs alongside the rest of the containers.
Right. So it is sort of an odd model, but it is what it is. So I just thought I was going to give it a second try. The first time around, I ran into this state where it seemed like I couldn't add more than one container to my cluster, which seemed very odd. I knew that couldn't be the way that this was designed to work, but that was as far as I got. And what it came down to was I didn't have a great understanding of how this worked. So I thought I might try to cover that a little bit in tonight's episode so that others won't get stuck. I'm pretty sure that anyone who's a little more familiar with Docker than I was when I first tried ECS probably wouldn't have gotten stuck where I did. But it seems like, so let me go into how a service is actually deployed on this cluster. So you define a cluster, and when you do that, you tell it, how many instances you think you're going to need and how you'd like things to scale. There's a few other questions you have to answer, but they all come down to, obviously what you want your cluster to look like, how big the instances are going to be, that sort of thing. Once you have a cluster actually defined, to put a workload on it, to put a container on it, you have to define a task. Right? Now, the tasks, from what I can tell, can be like a one-off, like I have a scheduled job that has to run at once every 3 days or a couple hours or whatever. That could be a task. Or a service, like a web page or something, would also be a task. So tasks can become services. And those are all basically, it's a container. Whether it's a task or a service, a task that runs once and terminates, or a service that runs all the time, they're containers, right? So to get your container into the cluster, you put it into a repository. And the first time around, what I ran into was the directions they give you on how to set up your repository makes it feel like you can only put one container into that repository. And just because the directions they give you have you tagging containers in a certain way and then tagging them and pushing them to the repository, if you follow their directions each time you want to push a different container, you're going to be overwriting your last container. So that the whole thing seemed like it was designed to only run a single service, which didn't make any sense to me. I could imagine in a state where you have a single service that you need to be up and running all the time, then sure, you could have a whole cluster to run a single service. But that doesn't seem to jive with the whole microservices paradigm, right? I want a bunch of little services that comprise a bigger service, and that didn't seem to make sense. The second time around, what I came to was it seems more likely that what they want you to do is each of your microservices goes into its own repository. So instead of having one repository for your whole cluster, which is what I thought the path forward was, because I was picturing it like a Docker repository, like Docker Hub, right? Docker Hub has a billion different containers inside of their repository. Excuse me. What it seems like they'd rather you do is you have individual repositories for each service, right? And you have all your different variants of the same container within that one repository. And then whichever one you have tagged as the latest version of that container is what ends up running live on your cluster. So, Dustin, you said you had been through a tutorial. Does that seem like what the tutorial had pushed you toward, or no?
I don't even think I got that far. I think I got as far as literally just running the sample application, configuring the CLI, and being able to push an image to the registry, which would expose me to that. And then picking an instance size, and that was about as far as I got with it. And that was a while ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you push that registry, does it seem to fit what I was just describing, where it goes into a, you've got the registry and then you've got your application, and it seems like a 1-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, I didn't really get a feeling that there was much more to expand upon. I think it was very one way.
Right.
It didn't seem like it was very flexible, like you're saying.
So what I couldn't wrap my head around the first time was, okay, so I've got my registry. I was picturing that I would have one registry for a whole cluster.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got my application in that registry and I can't have more than one application in the same registry, then how in the world would I run more than one application on this cluster? And the answer is that you can have more than one registry per cluster, or more than one registry, period, right? So when you define a task, you point it to the address where you'll find the container, right?
Okay.
So in this case, and I mean, this seems like it could be possible. You can point it to any registry that's not even running on Amazon. It could be like something from Docker Hub or something if you wanted to, I suppose.
Sure.
But when you define a task, you add a container to it. When you add the container, you put in the full URL to where Amazon's going to find that container. So in this case, I had a registry. I pointed it to the properly tagged version of that container, and then off it went. It pulled in my container, and it stood up. I just basically took a very simple Python web API based on the sort of thing that I was doing with the Derby, and I threw that
No way.
into. I know, imagine that. I threw that into the ECS cluster, and up it went, and I was able to call the API. The the thing I ran into next was, okay, so now I should be able to push a new version of that container, and the new version of that container should become live on my cluster, right? That didn't seem to work like I expected it to. I expected pushing a new version of the container would then trigger something.
To update it.
Kill the old container and bring up the new one. And it didn't seem to do that. And in trying to work through that, I actually hosed the cluster. So
how did you save yourself?
I ended up with a task that had a scheduled instance that the old task I had deactivated, but the instance inside of it was still running. So I had like a separate EC2 instance running to make that container work, even though the task was disabled. And I couldn't make it disable the instance. Like, I couldn't find a way to like just delete it. I couldn't find a way to say, okay, this task that I defined before is no longer a live thing. Right. And until I deleted the entire cluster, that endpoint kept working. I just couldn't get it to stop it.
That's weird. That's
so
peculiar.
I mean, it brings you back to the same, when you have a sufficiently complex UI in front of a sufficiently complex system, you're always going to run into a bug like this. You're going to run into things where the UI and the system are just not.
It could have been one of those things where, like, Amazon CLI would have saved you. Maybe there's something that was available via CLI, not available via GUI.
Maybe, and I think if I understood the AWS CLI a little better, that maybe I could have gotten around it by using the CLI. But
which is a beast of its own.
Yeah, I don't use Amazon AWS very frequently. It's more or less for like trial and error stuff, like I was just describing. So yeah, it could have simply been that I had done something wrong, and I could have easily gotten out of it by not destroying the cluster. But again, the cluster was just there for me to. I essentially built it so I could learn a little bit about how ECS worked before recording this show.
More than I did.
So, I mean, at any rate, it does look like an interesting technology. I don't know cost-wise if it works out any better than running it yourself or not.
Well, that's the thing. It depends on. I mean, you're always going to have an instance type cost, whether you use reserved or spot instances. Spot meaning you turn it on right there. Reserved meaning you're paying for or agreeing to some usage over a year or 3 years, right? So if they apply that same pricing model to the ECS space, right? Yeah, you can have some savings, but as you're saying, what is the cost difference? I mean, from my perspective, if it's following the same billing that everything follows now, unless they're running an optimized, let's call it an OS underneath to support all this or whatever, daemons are using, maybe they give you a different pricing tier because they can guarantee the efficiency of it on their hardware. I mean, that's a possibility, but I don't know enough about it to say, what would be different in the pricing model.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing felt very much like the pricing model is simply your pricing model is going to be based on what you're using on EC2.
Right, which is, not really any different.
Yeah.
You can't talk.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what I was leaning toward was, is it cheaper to just run my own VMs with Docker and Kubernetes? Right.
I think, well, Kubernetes is a different beast, but if you're going to run just containers and you've got the experience, running your own cluster is going to be cheaper, especially since you can expand it. If you use something simple like Swarm, you can expand it at will. The one thing I wonder is if you ran, I know it's apparently a dead project now, but if you ran something like Shipyard or Rancher or whatever as a container inside of, or Portainer inside of a
container. Fun to say.
Inside of ECS, would that give you additional features? Like, could you deploy right from Portainer or those?
Sure. To Rancher, yeah. There's a config follow you can go through that you basically add the Docker capable host, and it could be EC2.
You say sure, yeah, no problem, but
I would love to try it.
Try this?
Yeah, I think it's one of those like we'd have to try it and see if we could do it first.
From the documentation, it looks valid.
Right.
Oh, and to answer our EC2 container pricing, it says this is from Amazon. There is no additional charge for Amazon EC2 container service. You pay for AWS resources, example, EC2 instances or EPS volumes you create to store and run your application. You only pay for what you use as you use it. There are no minimum fees. So it's basically the same thing. Would you agree based on that wording?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You just don't have to set up the services yourself.
Right, and maintain it. Yeah, that's a big difference. Okay, sure. For sure. Nate's zoning out.
I'm not zoning out.
Oh,
so
you're like,
oh, I get it. Listen, don't blame me. It's the bandwidth's fault.
Damn your bandwidth.
Always blaming technology.
It's technology, man. Technology's a problem. So yeah, I mean, it looks like it could be fun to tinker with. I've been trying to think of ways to get the pile of servers out of my basement, and this may actually be a solution. So,
yeah,
that's part of my interest.
For sure. As much.
Sorry, you cut out there. What was that? Or we talked over each other, I should say.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I said you just don't have to worry about your underlying infrastructure as much power, bandwidth, things like that. You kind of offload it. You just have to trust whoever your provider is at that point.
But where's my server going to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to work that out, obviously.
In your backyard.
Yeah, right. You can put it in your own basement. So, I mean, like today, running systems in my basement comes along with the cost of bandwidth and then the cost of power, right? And the cost of power is not insignificant.
What about cooling?
I've gotten away with keeping them in the coolest part of my house, which is the basement.
Nice.
So far.
Cooling
But
a Facebook.
I certainly can't. If I expand too far, the basement's already getting warm-ish. Right? It's not too hot for a server, but it's certainly like if I keep expanding down there, it's going to get too hot.
It'll heat your house during the winter?
Maybe. And then, I mean, there's also the noise factor.
Yeah.
Like I can hear the servers running from my living room, which
is that a calming feeling or a?
Yeah, right. I've learned to live with that, and it's okay. But to the point where when there's a power outage, the whole like the silence that you feel when there's a power outage because like your fridge isn't running and you didn't even realize it, right?
Yep.
It's a lot more pronounced in my house. Because I don't hear the whirring of fans in the basement anymore.
Which is nice in one way, but also worrisome in another. It's like walking into a data center and it being quiet.
Yeah,
it's an active data center.
I don't have a reliable backup generator, so like I could run a backup generator, but it doesn't produce enough or clean enough power to power the servers. So even if the power's out, it's mainly to keep lights on in the fridge and stuff like that.
All the important stuff, sure.
Yeah. So if there's a power outage, I have a UPS that'll hold the servers for long enough for me to log into them and shut them down. So they're usually just generally a graceful shutdown when the power goes out. And so it's not as unsettling as you say. Because I'm just saying, it's just the availability, you just, I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
I guess if it's planned, it's not as scary. You're right. But if you walk in and it's just like, I think I found the problem.
Yeah, right.
Hey, no power.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. Why didn't I get any alerts? Well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I totally raced through the whole ECS thing. I don't know, you guys have anything more to say about Amazon's ECS? I mean, I do feel like the model is weird.
Has it changed from when we first looked at it, Jason? Has it gotten better? You're muted.
Oh,
blah, blah, blah,
it's significantly easier to deploy since when we first messed with it.
Wasn't it JSON originally?
Yeah, it was basically like
you can still use
welcome
JSON
to
for what it looks like.
Yeah, of course, but it was pure API. There was no way to do it without using the API.
Yep.
Which I mean, you could do, but it was not
easy.
Wasn't trivial.
Yeah.
So it's gotten better, and allegedly there's like all these new crazy features coming that are going to make it even better.
We'll see.
But you know, I don't know what they are.
Maybe it's Kubernetes.
I think we talked about the article. They joined the
That's why I brought it up.
Kubernetes Alliance or whatever the hell it was.
Yep.
But they swear they're not going to do Kubernetes. They just joined the alliance for.
I mean, we'll see, I suppose.
To hedge their bets, I guess.
Power to them. So, speaking of wanting to run containers, not really in Amazon land, but buying things from Amazon shopping online. We were talking about, building a server box. Apparently, Asus ROC released a rack mini ITX motherboard. Looks like a year ago, 2 years ago. And it supports version 4 of the Xeon E5 processor line up to the 2600, cool. Right? They support the 2699, which I looked up. I said, oh, that's an interesting processor. Yeah, so the 2099 is 22 cores, 44 threads with a 55 meg cache.
Nice.
2.2 gigahertz with a boost up to 3.7, and that mini ITX motherboard will support that big of a processor. Obviously, not fanless.
No, why not?
And 4 channels of DDR4 ECC RAM at 21 something. 2133.
Maybe if I connect that thing to my water heater, it'll heat the house.
Maybe. It probably could. I mean, it does support 64 gigs of RAM, so that's a lot of containers.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Oh, and it has IPMI, guys. It has a KVM built into it.
Good. That's important stuff right there. IPMI.
As long as the back door is there for people to get into.
Oh, might as well, right?
Is it an Intel
it's on a
IPMI?
Separate port. Yes, it's on a separate port, which is nice, though. So you can just not use that port if you want to isolate it.
Yeah, right.
Just a waste of space on the board.
All right, so I guess that's sort of a brief intro into ECS and building machines from Amazon. If we don't have much more input on that, I think maybe we'll call it a night tonight. You guys have anything else to say about ECS?
I think if you're smart enough to know what ECS is, then I would recommend running Docker on your own and build your own with EC2 instances.
It really feels like you could do this on your own at the same cost.
Well, cost aside, you're gonna be able to do a lot more with it because you're gonna be able to do debugging and everything else, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't run into the case where I did, where it's like, oh well, now I got to nuke my cluster.
Well,
how more insight?
Can you get a console?
So theoretically, yes. I didn't try that, and I should have before I nuked the thing. You can set these instances up so that they use your standard SSH key pairs with EC2.
That's not what
theoretically. What were you looking for? When you said console, I thought you
wonderful.
Like access.
No. Well, I mean, one of the attractions of a container is that you never have to have a shell.
You mean a console on the container?
Right. So
I don't know.
In Docker land, you would just do docker exec -it container name like sh or bash, and you could get a console on it. So obviously you have to have a shell, but like you don't have to have SSH installed on these.
Yeah. So there were two things that I didn't delve into, and I probably should have. One of them was logging. How can I get logs from my containers out to a place where I can actually parse those logs? And the other was consoles on the containers. So I would think that with SSH access to the instances, you could probably get to the consoles on the containers. And that might also be the way you'll get your logs. But,
yeah, that's
I didn't dig into it. I didn't really dig into how that would work.
Yeah. Have to dig.
So maybe that'll be next time. All right, so that's an intro to ECS. I don't know what if we want to continue along the lines of Docker. If there's another one we want to try to tackle next time around, we could go for the one that Dustin got shut down.
Oh, come on! I'm not responsible.
Allegedly.
Yeah. No, I didn't shut it down. So there's
an inside joke we had in the pre-show, guys. Sorry.
Should we fill them in or no?
No, I don't know that that's really all that pertinent.
Fair enough. So yeah, we could do something like that. I think it'd be interesting. I think that could be a contribution I could help bring maybe for once.
I feel like we can dig a little deeper on Kubernetes. We could dig into OpenShift.
Sure. Or OpenShift Origin.
Yeah. Rancher exists in this space as well, though I haven't used it.
Rancher has their own OS now too.
Awesome.
So it's literally like Atomic, if you're familiar with Atomic.
Is there a Jolly Rancher?
Atomic is awesome. I love Atomic.
I don't know.
Atomic is pretty cool.
Well, it's like that, but it's custom for Rancher, obviously. And the goal is to spin up, even if it's just a plain vanilla Docker instance, to spin up your system services, so DNS, DHCP, all the stuff that you need to make things work. And then you have another set of containers that you run all your apps inside of. So it's kind of like the DCOS model, except it seems a little cleaner.
I've heard nothing but bad about ECS.
They've tried to get better.
Mainly, I've heard that from Jason. So
when we were using them, they had a very hard time struggling to get to release. I think it was 1.1.0 or was it 1.9? I forget. And they literally had no upgrade path. No uninstall path.
It was like 1.8 to 1.9. It was like, go ahead, reinstall.
Yeah, that's what it was. The upgrade path was, set up 1.9 servers, which, mind you, is like a cluster of 3 or 5. Migrate everything to those, and then decommission your other servers. It was yeah,
like masters and clients, like everything. You had to build the entire thing up.
Yeah, it was
not trivial.
I'm facing a similar upgrade path with my Rev infrastructure.
Rev.
Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, otherwise known as Red Hat Virtualization. They've rebranded it as Red Hat is good at.
Nice. I have not been privy to that.
Apparently, to get from Rev 3 to Rev 4, it's basically a migration, not an upgrade, which is
peculiar.
It's not as horrible of a migration as it could have been, but it's like, take your Rev 3 manager and back it up. Now build a Rev 4 manager and restore your backup to it. Which is kind of a pain in the ass because my Rev 3 manager runs on a blade, which I had intended to run until it was out of support. Not gonna be able to do that anymore.
Yeah. You put a template in. You run the Rev 4 manager on the template. You migrate everything over. Then you put the a new Rev 4 manager on the old blade. Then you migrate everything back over again.
Yeah. No, I've got a plan to move forward, and it's just at the end of it, I may end up with the ability to have like an HA pair of Rev managers, which would be a lot nicer than having a single point of failure like I have now. But to get from here to there, it's going to be A, expensive, and B, time consuming, and C, probably stressful.
And D, not your money, so whatever.
D, not my money. Lots of fun, but this has nothing to do with containers, so.
It's kind of it's about the infrastructure. So it could be the infrastructure that supports your containers.
Certainly, I could be running containers in VMs on Rev.
Why not? Well, people do that in EC2.
I am actually running containers on VMs in Rev. So
see,
it's totally related.
Yeah, man.
All right, I think we've exhausted the night.
Yeah, I think we're gonna call it a night tonight, guys. So the part of the podcast where Jason falls asleep and wakes up when I'm finished telling you how you can find us. So I'm working I actually made some progress on building an actual site for ironsysadmin.com. So hopefully in the future, there will be a point where this whole section of the podcast is just talking about how to get to ironsysadmin.com, which will get you everywhere else. But for the moment, we're going to have to iterate all of these things. You can find us on Patreon, on Facebook, or on Twitter. Just find Iron Sysadmin. Patreon donors, we are very appreciative. I want to make it a point to say that every time we have a show. Anything you want to give us is great. So that's awesome. Yep. If you want to watch us live on YouTube, I mean, obviously this is generally an audio podcast. But if you want to see our smiling faces and watch us drink, if you go to ironsysadmin.com/YouTube, it'll get you to our channel. You can also find the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher, of course. And as of, 2 episodes ago now, we have a Slack channel. ironsysadmin.com/Slack will get you to the join link for our Slack channel. So come join us. There's a couple people in the channel, or in the team.
In the workspace.
Yeah, workspace. Sorry. Not a terrible amount of community there just yet, but we're hoping that builds up. So, all right, I think that's it for tonight, folks. So thanks for listening. Nobody was watching on YouTube, but if you were, thanks for watching. I didn't see anybody pop in there. Did you guys?
No.
Certainly nobody in chat. So I don't know. I have been considering stopping the live YouTube feeds. So if anybody out there has any opinions as to whether we should keep doing live YouTube feeds or not, please speak up. Send us some feedback. Either find us in any of the ways I just mentioned, or send us an email at podcast@ironsysadmin.com. We'll get.
I have a better idea.
What's the better idea?
We're going to make 2 Patreon tiers. One for yes live feeds and one for no live feeds. So you can vote for the wallets.
Vote by sending us money.
Yeah. We'll make them inexpensive. They'll be like $1 or $2.
Yeah, $1 for no and like $100 for yes.
I was thinking like,
better yet,
which way do we want? Yeah, I mean, would you rather continue them or not continue them? I mean, that's how you weigh it.
Yeah, right. If you don't like watching us do this thing, then it's gonna cost you.
No, I mean,
seriously, the live feed is a relatively easy thing for us to set up, but it does mean that we have to make sure we're on schedule and whatnot. And it adds a little bit of,
and we're horrible at that.
Yeah, a little bit of stress to podcast night. If we were just recording this with just us, then it wouldn't matter what time we do it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll keep it, maybe we won't. But just something I've been kicking around. So yeah, I guess before my voice gives out, we're going to call it a night. So thanks everyone for listening and or watching, and I guess we'll see you next time around. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Yay.